That doesn't necessarily sound like a compliment, but it is. Just go with me on that. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Read, share, repeat, where we discuss books from the perspective of an aspiring fantasy author. Me, Carrie Share. And welcome to another weekly reading vlog. I haven't done just a straight up weekly reading vlog in a while, I think since the very beginning of the year, but as you may have noticed, I've kind of struggled to be consistent with content on this channel, and a lot of it has to do with me just biting off more than I can chew. And as I am running up to the very end of my first draft of my current work in progress, I am trying to focus more on writing rather than content creation and, to an extent, reading. I made some choices about some DNFs this week. I scrapped some content that I had planned and made the decision to kind of revert back to these weekly reading vlogs for the time being while I try and rebalance the obligations I have set upon for myself. For the next couple of weeks, you'll get these standard weekly reading vlogs and then a different kind of sit down video every week. Like I said, I'll talk more about that in my cozy reset, which you'll probably actually not see first. This will probably come out first, but I'll just go into more detail about how I came to that decision in that video. With that out of the way, let's get into the books I plan on reading this week. Longtime viewers of my now dedicated writing channel know that I prefer to do a physical read and a ebook read for the week. And both my physical and my ebook read are books that I had actually intended to read at the beginning of the month as part of Nerdy Nat Reads Patreon readathon, and due to circumstances they ended up getting put off, and now I'm returning at the very end of the month to try and get them completed before the month turns over. So for my physical read, I will be reading The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik. This is the third in the Sholomance trilogy, a series that really took me by surprise with how much I liked it. Typically, YA is not the genre for me, but this really struck a chord with me. I really like Elle. I've really liked her journey. I've really liked her arc of finding her place in society and making friends and accepting who she is without compromising who she is, and coming to the understanding that she doesn't have to trade connections with people for who she is inside. So I've really liked that. The second book ended off on a pretty big cliffhanger, and I knew that I wanted to get back to this relatively quickly, relatively being based on how long it takes me to finish some other series, but I have read the first chapter and a half of roughly the first 10%, and it's already like, it's giving me that feeling that I sometimes get, that I frequently get, let's be honest, when I'm coming up on the end of something I've enjoyed where I want to avoid it, and I'm like, no, maybe this isn't the right time to read it. I just don't feel it right now. And that's not really true. It's just that I don't want it to be over. And so I read the first chapter and a half. I was like, I don't know. But I know that it's just because once I finish it, it's over. I know I'm going to love this. I'm hopeful that it'll be a 5-star. The first two books was a 4 and a 4.5 respectively. So if she nails the ending, then I think that it could be a potential 5-star. That is my physical book for the read. It's only about 400 pages, so very doable for the week, especially with the holiday tomorrow. And then for my ebook read, I'm actually going to be finally getting back to The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd Jones. A funny story about this one. I had started reading this book at the beginning of the month, like I said, for the readathon, and then my loan was running out pretty quickly, and it was due to end at 8 o'clock on a Sunday. And I was like, no problem, I've been reading it really fast, I'm already at 40%, I just need to dedicate a couple of hours on Sunday to finishing it. Turns out it was 8 a.m. on Sunday, not 8 p.m. And so by the time I woke up on Sunday, it had already been snatched out of my Kindle, and I had to go back on the hold list to get it back. And fortunately, I was able to get it back last week, so that was great. But I was like, how did I fuck that up so monumentally that I didn't realize it was an 8 a.m. return, not an 8 p.m. And anyway, like I said, and I'm about the 38% mark, which is like the end of part 1. I will say that this book typically isn't in my wheelhouse. I'm not a big YA person, and romantasy tends to be kind of a hit or miss, more on the miss side usually. I am finding that I'm not really minding this book so much. I do, like, sometimes Branwen grates on me just a little bit, and I can't really put my finger on why, but for the most part, it's very easy to read. The characters don't bother me that much, and I'm kind of intrigued by the premise. So in this book, we've got these 3 different characters. Our main character is Bronwyn, who through circumstances as an infant became touched by magic, and so she has one eye that is normal and one that can see the Fey realm and the magic and things that are magic touched. And she has used that skill that she has had to keep hidden to be a hunter. She is the caretaker for her mom, who is declining in mental capacity, it seems like she is suffering from some kind of dementia. And she is approached by this prince who is kind of like a lesser prince, like the 3rd or 4th in line. And he serves as like the spy / trickster for his kingdom, but he is afraid that one of his siblings is going to ascend to the throne and it will not be very good because he's not a very nice person. And so he is entering into the hunt to earn a favor in order to promote one of his other siblings to the throne and depose this brother of his that he thinks will be a tyrant. So he's approached Bronwyn because he's heard about like her skill, not knowing about her eye. They are teaming up together to join this hunt. And that is where I left off. They had just entered the forest where the hunt is being held at 40%. That is The Wild Huntress. Like I said, I am liking it okay. So those are those 2 books. Like I said, I'm already at 40%, and I read that 40% very, very quickly. So I do anticipate finishing this. Now we've got the holiday, but I do anticipate finishing this probably by Wednesday or Thursday. That I do manage to finish it. I would also like to finish out Atomic Habits by James Clear. I picked this up kind of out of desperation at the beginning of the month when I was feeling really down on myself and really needing like a push and some motivation to get myself back in the right mind space. And I read like the first like 60% and then felt like I was like, okay, I got what I needed out of it, but like my neuroses won't let me leave it unfinished. So I'd like to just go ahead and finish that and knock it out for completion purposes. Again, that's another book that reads very, very quickly. So I think if I can get those 2 both done, then I will be picking up A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. This is on my library loans list and has been for like about a month now. And this is a YA romantasy, but the difference is that I read A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft earlier this year, or late last year is the last book I read in... Is that the right name of the book? Yeah, it is. Okay. In 2024. And I really, really liked it for the most part. The ending, we're not going to talk about it. So I think I already feel well enough about Allison Saft's writing style that I think this might be good. So with the interest of clearing it out of my queue, I'd at least like to get started on it. Now, do I anticipate finishing The Wild Huntress and Atomic Habits and still have time to finish A Fragile Enchantment? Probably not, but ideally, I'd at least get started. And I definitely don't anticipate reading any other physical books than the Golden Enclaves, unless like I spend all day tomorrow reading, which I really can't afford to do. I've got a lot of writing I need to do. But even so, I think I'll probably take my time with that one. I think that'll probably take me the whole week. So those are my reading plans, and I will just kind of check in with you throughout the week and let you know how it's going. Hey y'all, it is now Monday afternoon, and I haven't done any reading since we last spoke, but I did just get back from the bookstore. There was a Memorial Day sale at Barnes, and I was just feeling like treating myself. I did have quite a bit of money on my clinical trial card, so I've got quite a large haul. I actually, when I first arrived, I only saw 3 books off my first pass that I wanted. And I was like, am I really only gonna buy 3 books today? Is that really all? And so I went through another pass and then ended up with like 13 books. Let's take a look at what I found. So this was actually the last 3 books that I picked up on my way out. And they are A Marvelous Light, A Restless Truth, and A Power Unbound by Freya Marsk. And these 3 books make up the Last Binding trilogy, a queer historical fantasy series that I have had on my radar for a while. In fact, A Marvelous Light has been in my queue at my library for a while, and I was just waiting for like an opening in my TBR. But now I can just go ahead and add them to my shelves. I've been really into like queer historical fantasy lately, looking for books specifically like A Strange and Stubborn Endurance. And I've heard really, really good things about this first book at least. So pretty excited. The first couple is 2 men, and then 2 ladies, and I think 2 men again. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this one. And then actually the very last book I picked up on my way out of the fantasy section was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. You know what this is. I don't need to tell you. I will tell you that I haven't read it yet. I am very, very late to the bandwagon, but I just read The River Has Roots by Amal El-Motar, and I thought the writing was very beautiful. That plus the hype, and I feel pretty certain that this is going to be a big hit. And then tucked away in a corner in between 2 books that kind of overshadowed it, I found The Battle Drum by Sarah El-Arifi. This is the 2nd book in her Ending Fire trilogy, and the reason I bought it, despite the fact that I had kind of middling feelings on The Final Strife, is because I really do like the setting and the central conflict. I had a hard time with the actual writing style itself, and I wasn't really in love with the characters, but the setting and the conflict sold me. And I said in that reading vlog, which I will link up above if you're interested, that I will probably go ahead and continue with the series. And since this one matches the edition I already own, kind of made my decision for me. The next 3 books, I really struggled with whether or not I actually wanted to buy them. I'm typically not a huge fan of these kinds of bind-ups, but I have had trouble locating the rest of the books in the series through other means, and I imagine now that these bind-ups are coming out, those older editions are not going to be as readily available, and that is the Murderbot Diaries series. Volume 1 contains the first 2, All Systems Red and Artificial Condition. Volume 3 is Rogue Protocol and Exit Strategy. And Volume 3 is Fugitive Telemetry and System Collapse. I know there's a full-length novel. Can't remember. So I don't know if there's going to be another bind-up or if the novel is standalone. Anyway, I caved. I really loved All Systems Red, and I'm really excited for the series coming out, the Apple TV series, which means I need to read the rest of these, and it just wasn't convenient to do so otherwise. So what can I say? I did it. They're convenient, they're pretty, and if another opportunity to get to obtain the individual novellas falls into my lap, I'll take that too. And then I picked up the final trilogy in the Robin Hobb universe, the Fitz and the Fool, starting with Fool's Assassin, Fool's Quest, and then finishing out with Assassin's Fate, which means I now possess 4 of the 5 series in the Robin Hobb universe. There's one more that actually goes in between the Tawny Man trilogy and Fitz and the Fool trilogy. It's a quartet, and I have not seen it anywhere, so that's one I'm probably going to have to buy online. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm super excited to finally add these to my shelf. I have been on the lookout for the final 2 series in the universe for like a year. So I love it. I'm really excited about it. I just need to get a move on with actually reading them. And then finishing out my haul, I completed another series that I have the first one of, and that is the Burning Kingdoms trilogy by Tasha Suri, and I picked up the Oleander Sword and the Lotus Empire to go with my edition of the Jasmine Throne that I already own. I read the Jasmine Throne earlier this year alongside the Final Strife, and I really enjoyed it, and I was really looking forward to continuing the series. And now I can. And that's it. I'm not going to tell you how much it cost me, but I did get $10 off. All of these books are books I have pegged as books I want to read. So in that way, I feel really good about this haul. And now I just need to get a move on with reading. Oh my gosh, I just realized I have to actually find a place to put all these. Hey y'all. Just checking in for a quick reading update. It is now Tuesday evening, and I've read a little bit more of the Golden Enclaves, and I've read a little bit more of the Wild Huntress. So first up, the Golden Enclaves. I hit the 25% mark last night, and I can't really talk too much about this book because it's the 3rd book in a trilogy, but I just love Elle. I just love her as a character, and I just love the journey that she's been on. And while everything so far in this first part of the book, as per usual, is kind of shitty for her, I just love watching her tackle each new challenge and each new situation and each shitty thing that is thrown at her while staying true to herself. I admire that so much. I really love her as a character, and I love the journey she's on, and I'll be really sad when the story is over. But unfortunately, I can't tell you anything about it because of spoilers. That's what I have to say about that. As for the Wild Huntress, I just hit the 50% mark today, and I'm finding this book really interesting because I don't hate it. which is so weird for a YA, maybe romantasy. I can't remember if it's actually a romantasy, but it's definitely YA. It doesn't feel super YA to me. Maybe that's part of the reason. I know that it is, and I can see facets of it that other people will be like, that's Hallmark YA, but it just doesn't feel as YA as some other YA does. And maybe that's the reason that I'm not hating it. And in fact, kind of liking it and finding it to be kind of a nice, relaxing read. It's going very, very quickly. Despite being over 400 pages, I feel like the chapters just fly by and the plot is just going very, very quickly. But I'm digging it. I am. I mean, I don't think this is going to be like a new favorite, but this is probably near the top so far of YA potentially romances that I've ever read, simply because I'm not dragging my ass through it. I'm actually going through it at a pretty good clip and not hating it and finding it kind of relaxing and enjoying myself, which is really all I can ask for in a book, at times. Not everything has to be heavy and not everything has to be gut-wrenching and not everything has to give me that feeling. Sometimes it's just nice to read just something that is just good time without any peaks or valleys. So that doesn't necessarily sound like a compliment, but it is. Just go with me on that. That's it for today. My plan is to hopefully get through another big chunk of the Wild Huntress tomorrow, maybe even finish. Like I said, it reads so very quickly. We'll wrap that up, hopefully wrap up Atomic Habits too, and maybe try and slip in A Fragile Enchantment. All right, y'all, that's it for me. I am too damn tired to think of any words that make any modicum of sense. So I will check in with you guys hopefully tomorrow. Hey y'all, time for a quick reading update. Very quick because I only have a few minutes before work. And I normally only do these for my writing vlog updates, but I am very, very behind on my writing deadline, which is Sunday. So I'm going to be spending tonight and Saturday and Sunday writing. And I'm probably not going to have time for filming. So I want to do this really quick. It is Friday morning. Last night I finished The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd-Jones. And my thoughts can be summed up as the vast majority of this book, I would say like 92% of it, a really good time. I liked the world. I liked the setting. I liked, for the most part, the characters. I liked the general thrust of the plot. I did think the pacing was a little weird, starting to hunt at like the 45-50% mark. Oh well. But for the most part, I liked it. And I didn't expect to be honest with you. I thought this was going to be just another trite romantasy, but actually the romantic subplot was just a subplot. It was not the main thrust of the story. So that was a pleasant surprise. It was just a really, really entertaining time. And then the ending happened and I got pretty mad. And this might just be a me thing. This might just be a thing where these sorts of endings in particular piss me off, but it did. It pissed me off. It made me upset and angry, and it not even so much. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoilers. I don't think that I can, but there's a big shocking reveal and there are consequences from that reveal, and that was fine, but it was just the way that the ending wraps up. Okay, I'm gonna put a spoiler warning up here. I'm not gonna get into specific spoilers, but I am gonna talk about kind of the general type of ending that it is, that does kind of give you an idea of how it ends. So I'm going to put a spoiler tag here, but like I said, it's not specific. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to tell you specific plot points. It's just a general vibe. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I hate it. I hate when the villain or the antagonist or the bad guy basically wins and gets everything they want, but then the author is like trying to be like, oh, but there were actually downsides, and them getting everything that they wanted actually wasn't worth all of the pain, the amount of heartbreak, and like the amount of duplicity and things that they needed to do to get there wasn't worth it, yada yada, to try and make the reader feel better about the antagonist winning. But really, it's even those drawbacks, they just pale in comparison to all of the like harm that was done to the protagonists. And yet we're supposed to be like, that's okay. No, I hate those endings. And like I said, perfectly valid on the author. And there are probably people out there who don't mind these endings or even like them. I was so mad. I was so mad. Oh, I need to say spoiler off. Spoiler off. And so I honestly was thinking like a 4.5. And then when I put it down, I put the book, I was reading on my phone because I was at swimming lessons and I was getting like angry at swimming lessons. When I put the book, when I closed it and I was done, I was like, this is a 3 at best because of the ending. But I've given it some thought and I'm only going to dock a 0.5 star for the ending. I still don't like it, but it's not incongruous. The ending is not incongruous. Let me just say that. It makes a certain kind of sense. I just don't like it when that thing that I mentioned in the spoilers happens. I don't like it. So I'm only going to dock a half star because it was, like I said, it wasn't invalid. It wasn't like it's not like it didn't make any sense. And it didn't even come entirely out of left field. A little bit of a surprise, but not entirely out of left field. And it was funny too, because I was sitting there thinking around like the 60, 65, 70% mark, like, how is this a standalone? Because it just seemed like there was just so many open-ended things, just the plot and the character relationships, and it just seemed like there was so much that could lead into a sequel. And I was like, how is this a standalone? And as far as I know, it still is a standalone. And then the way it ended, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's a standalone for sure. It definitely could be expanded upon, but it doesn't need anything else either. So I can't even remember why I went on that tangent. But anyway, point is like, it made sense, even though I didn't like it. It made a certain kind of sense. It wasn't the author just throwing in something completely random that made the characters behave out of character, or like, anyway, it made a certain kind of sense, and I just didn't happen to like it. So I'm only gonna dock a half star. So I'm going to give The Wild Huntress 4 stars, and probably once I have more distance from it, I'll feel even less angry about the ending. So, okay, so that's The Wild Huntress. And then the night before last, I hit the 60% mark of the Golden Enclaves. And again, I can't really talk too much about this without getting super deep into specific spoilers. But what I will say is I just love Elle so much. And I just want her to win and be happy, and to be able to lay in a meadow surrounded by flowers and happiness and sunshine, and hold her friends' hands and just take a nap. That's all I want for her. I'm scared. I'm so scared of what the last 30% or 40% is going to bring. I'm so scared. Something else that I really love about the story is, again, trying to be non-specific, there is a greater conflict that is so much larger than herself and her concerns. There's a greater conflict affecting the entire global magical community. And that's like affecting things, and it's at the back of their minds. And like, yes, they are gonna play a part in that probably. But Elle's concern is her friends. At every point so far in this book, Elle has been my friends. They need me for this specific thing, and I don't like it, but I'm gonna do it. And now I need to go take care of Orion and that situation. That is all I am focused on right now. Goes and does it. And then at the point I just got to, now Lou needs help, and she's just like, okay, let's go take care of her. And so that is, I just love that so much, that even though there's all these like other larger concerns going on, her focus has never wavered from, I'm going to take care of the people I love and the people that are in my bubble, because that's what I can do. And I just love that. And like I said, I'm very, very frightened of what this last of the ending, because it could really, really break my heart. I can see this really breaking my heart, and I can't really go into the reasons why without getting into spoilers. I'm scared. I'm almost afraid to like pick it back up. I'm gonna try and finish it. I doubt I'll finish it today. I have so much writing I need to get done, so much. But I'm gonna try for sure and make sure it's wrapped up before the end of the vlog. 150 pages left, and it'll be the climax, and I'm sure I'm just gonna fly through it once I get into it again. And I'll be honest, on Wednesday, I was reading and reading and reading, and I told my partner, he came into bed, and I was like, if it were any other time other than month end, which is the busiest time for me at my job and requires a lot of like mental labor, I told him if it were any other time but month end, I would probably stay up late. I would probably stay up till like 3 a.m. and finish this book. So, and I mean, I'm glad I didn't, because yesterday, Thursday, was an ass kicking. I came home and it felt like my brain was leaking out of my ears. So I'm glad that I didn't, but now I'm just like, now that I've put it down, I'm like, I don't know if I want to know what happens. I'm scared. Anyway, so that's my reading update. Like I said, I'm going to try and finish that book today or tomorrow. Probably, almost certainly not today. And then I'm going to try and finish Atomic Habits for sure today. And then, quick update to my reading plans. I did see that The City in Glass is actually a novella that is on my TBR for next month. So, and it's only 200 pages. So if I finish Atomic Habits today, I may skip A Fragile Enchantment and try and squeeze in the city in class tomorrow. This really is all completely dependent on... See, here's the thing. Part of the problem with separating my reading from my writing is that I forget that they cannot physically occupy the same time slot. And so I do have 12,000 words to write before Sunday, or by Sunday. So that is going to be taking up a huge part of my time. I will have to be extremely focused. And yet here I'm like, oh, I'll just finish the last 150 pages of this book and read another 200 pages of this book. And that takes time. I only read 50 pages an hour. Okay, so I have been yapping for way too long, so I'm gonna go in and work. I'm gonna try and finish Atomic Habits today. And if there's time, I will be skipping A Fragile Enchantment and going into the city in glass just to try and knock that out and squeeze it into the month. I will check in with you guys later. I just got to the 75% mark of the Golden Enclaves. And I'm not gonna lie, I got a little teary over a man. Naomi Novik, you're a monster. I just hit like the 80% mark, and there's a big reveal. And I was working my way on figuring that out, but I didn't in time. And even though I kind of had the shape of what this reveal was going to be, it's still fucking with me. Oh my God, I just love Elle so much. And these last 75 pages are going to destroy me. I can already tell. Hey everyone, it is now Sunday evening and it is time to wrap up this vlog with my final reading update of the week. Just a little bit ago, I was able to finally finish The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, one thing that really stood out to me about this book was the fact that while I was reading it, I never once thought about what I thought about it. I never even briefly considered what I might rate it at the end. As I was reading this book, all I could think about was this book and these characters and this story and how afraid I was of how it was going to end because I was so scared that it wouldn't work out all right. And for that reason, it must be 5 stars. I loved this so much. So much. It did not really occur to me until I was in the meat of this book how much I love Elle and how much I love her friends and how much I love her relationship with her friends and how giving and loving and wonderful of a person she is, despite being prickly and salty and never, never turns away from an opportunity to be bitchy at somebody. That's the kind of unlikable female character that I love so much. Okay, why? That I love so much. The kind who are prickly on the outside, but are actually so wonderful on the inside. This whole series has been a revelation for me. I haven't mentioned it in a while, or I don't even know if I talked about it on this channel, but several years ago on my blog, I asked my followers if they thought I would like this series based on the fact that I don't really get along with YA. And the response was generally, no, don't bother. And I'm so glad I didn't end up listening to that, because while this is a YA, it doesn't feel quite like a YA, except in one specific way that I'll talk about in a minute because it's kind of spoilery. Yes, it takes place in a magical school, and yes, the main characters are teenagers. It didn't give me the YA vibes that I've come to expect from modern YA. And so when I first read A Deadly Education, I was surprised by how much I loved it. And that just continued to build throughout every book of this series until I landed here, and every minute of this was so wonderful to me. Even the parts where I was like tearing up and afraid of what was going to happen and angry at the circumstances and upset and not wanting and feeling for Elle, her desperation and her anguish. I loved it. I loved it so much. Now, I'm going to talk very generally about spoilers, nothing super specific, but if you're the kind of person who thinks talking about just like the vibe of an ending is spoilery, I'm going to go ahead and give you a general spoiler warning. I'm going to put a watermark right here, and it will be safe to come back when the watermark goes away. But again, I'm not going to be talking about specific spoilers, but if you don't even want general spoilers, go away and come back when this watermark is gone, okay? 3, 2, 1. The one sort of YA-y thing that I felt appeared in this book that I actually was grateful for was the ending. I am so glad Naomi Novik did not go for a downer ending, because I was very, very worried that the foregone conclusion of this book would end up being foregone. I was actively afraid. And when we got into the climax and that was looking more and more like the case, I was having such a difficult time getting through the pages, because I just didn't want Elle to go through that. I hated it so much for her, and I just wanted her to have a happy ending so badly. And so while yes, some adult novelists may have taken this in the darker direction, I'm so glad that Naomi Novik chose to make this an uplifting ending. Not even uplifting, but like just good. A good ending for Elle and for her loved ones. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Spoiler off. See? Nothing specific. Oh my gosh. I love this series. I do. This might be one of my all-time favorite series. I'd have to kind of sit down and think about what is, because I haven't finished very many of them, to be honest with you. And this is certainly top 3 series. I love this. And for me, it got better and better with each book. A Deadly Education was 4 stars. The Last Graduate was 4.5, and this is a resounding 5-star. And I can't wait to go through and properly annotate these. I did attempt at annotation, A Deadly Education, but it was very, very thin. And I do want to go through and properly annotate them. Wow, I have been so fortunate this year with the big books I have been picking up being really wonderful. Technically, this is the 3rd 5-star I have had this year. One was a reread, but when I reread it, I upgraded it from a 4 to a 5. And to be fair, the other one was Gideon the Ninth, which I kind of expected to be 5-star, but this one I hoped it would be, but I didn't know. And especially considering I have read the final entries of 2 other trilogies this year, and both of them I felt didn't quite nail the landing. I'm so happy that this one did. So happy. Loved it. So glad I read it. And that is all I'm going to say about A Deadly Education. Highly recommend. And that's pretty much it for this reading vlog. I did also finish Atomic Habits by James Clear. Not really a lot to talk about there. It's a nonfiction book, a self-help book, and it was useful to me. I think I gave it 4 stars because I needed it. I needed some of the wisdom that I found in it, but I also don't think that it is one size fits all. It certainly assumes that you have a healthy neurotypical brain, which I do not possess, and certainly isn't universal. And so not everything in that book is going to work for everybody. And a lot of it was stuff I had thought of before but didn't have a name for. And not everything I find to be easily implemented, probably because of my brain. But there were some bits in there that were really, really helpful for me, at least to understand. And maybe with some more reflection, I can implement these suggestions in that book. So that was another 4-star read. I feel weird about rating nonfiction, but for me, it was a 4-star because of like the eye-openingness of it. So to wrap up, in this reading vlog, I finished The Wild Huntress, which I had started at the beginning of the month, but had an unfortunate library mishap, and finished out earlier this week. That one, while I was tempted to rate low because I didn't like the ending, I did sleep on it and decide to give 4 stars. I also finished up Atomic Habits, which I also started at the beginning of the month and ended up finishing this week. Again, 4 stars. And finally, I rounded out the week with the Golden Enclaves with a 5-star. So that is a hella good reading week, if you ask me. I am very critical, as you may know, when I read. And so a lot of times I'm reading stuff that I have to slog through. So the fact that I was going through these books so quickly and really, really enjoying them was a delight and a welcome change. So that's going to wrap up this reading vlog. Next week is my vacation week, my annual birthday staycation, with the added condition this year that my kids aren't here. They are currently, or will be tomorrow, on a trip to Disney. So I will have the whole house to myself. And I do intend to get a ton of reading done. And when I say a ton, I mean it, because the last time I was on vacation, I read 6 books. Now, some of them were audiobooks that I read in the car while traveling, and some I had already started before, but 6 books. So I've got some really high hopes for this next reading vlog. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe, or consider leaving a comment down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me like a golden or sparkly emoji in the comments. In my next video, I will have my June cozy reset for you. I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.